Off we go. Hi, welcome. Over the last few weeks, I've been trying to talk to you about this. This is the stages of strategy and how we move from stage to stage. I've tried to give you some clue about what it means to do that and what you have to do in order to identify what stage of strategy you are in. In order to move forward for your projects and in life, once you've identified a stage, you need to figure out where you are within that stage, because each stage has basically 3 phases to it. So what we are going to do here is we are going to take this and sort of break it down into other parts. One of the things that I've tried to show you over the last few weeks, first and foremost, was things like this. These, for those of you who don't recognize them, all of these are the elements of strategy. We've talked about these. I've tried to explain them to you. I even gave you videos that broke them down and gave you a clue how to understand each one in a theoretic framework, as in not in real life, as in not in, okay, what actual resources do we have, but what do these mean theoretically? Your job as we move forward will be to fill this in a much clearer sense and say, okay, this is what this means in reality for me. But at the strategic stage, your job is to go, well, theoretically, this is what I want to do with this. Theoretically, these are the resources that I want. So now that we're moving from the strategic into the operative, which is where we're going to go from here, your job will be to take this and move it forward. What does that mean? It means that you are going to actually sit there and write out, here are the channels that we are going to address in order about where we're going to gather our information. We are going to look at things like analysis and go, okay, what is it that we need to know about that information? How are we going to analyze it? What is going to be the frameworks that we're going to use to understand what we get? You're going to look at vision and you're going to go, okay, wait, that's my vision. But in order to do that, I understand that this is what my tree looks like. This is where I need to go from here. Right? And then you're going to move onward. You're going to say, okay, what resources do I have? What are the value statements that I want to make? What are the things that are going to limit us in terms of time, in terms of other things? And then you're going to organize around that. You're going to set some very clear objectives for your team. That will give you a sense of what it is you're going to control, what it is you're going to command. It's going to give you a sense of where you're going to have to take some risks, where your opportunity is going to lie, and exactly what operations you're going to have to put into play next. Now, I want to make it really, really, really clear that you are not yet supposed to go jumping into the tactical and go, all right, let's start building our website, or, okay, let's start figuring out what exactly we're going to do. No. Your job here is to set up a very clear sense of what your purpose will be in the next stage in this process, which is going to be happening over the next week and a half, 2 weeks. That means what you're going to do is go, okay, we're going to determine clear objectives over the next 2 weeks. How do we do that? Well, we need to figure out what resources we actually have available to us. We need to understand what it is that we are and are not willing to do in order to get this thing done as we move forward. I want to make it really, really clear. Your job right now is not to complete the project writ large. Your job right now is to come up with a deck that will explain to me and others what it is you intend to do on your second go around on this project, where you take this and go, I'm going to make this much bigger than it really is. Did that make sense to everybody? Good, I'm glad. Now, where are we going from here? We are going to move from here into some other very important points. One of them is a discussion about which strategic framework you're going to use. You can choose to use the SCF. You can choose to use the business canvas model. We've spoken about these. I will explain them a little bit more in just a moment. You can also use the Leitner version. Any of these is fine with me. I don't really care. But the point will be as follows. Once you have an understanding of the elements, you are going to start looking at each of these different sub-elements that are attached to this specific framework. And you're going to go, okay, my long-range intentions look like this. Our identity, who we are as a group, is X, Y, whatever. Here's the structure. Here's the person in charge. Here's the different things that we need to do. You don't have to use this one. You don't have to use this one. You don't have to use this one. I don't care which one you use. But at the end of the day, you got to choose some kind of framework within which you're going to explain to me and to everybody else what your intentions are and how you're going to move forward. Because if you don't do that, it's going to be really unclear to us as we try and help you, or as I try and help you, figure out what it is you want to do. Now, does anyone have any questions up until this point? Because if I remember correctly, have already discussed all of these with you. Is that correct? That was a question. Yes. Zach's gonna talk. What was that, Zach? Yeah, Doc. Okay, fine. Doc. Man, I didn't know I was dealing with Bugs Bunny. Yeah, okay. Well, you're not Bugs Bunny. Anyway, moving forward. Here we go. There is what I'm going to call a physics to strategy. Now, you're on, I didn't sign up for physics. Stop. That's fine. It's not about the physics of it. Someone's calling me and I don't know why. Turn off. Go away. Great. Stop. Okay. Murray and Grimsley tell us that strategy is a process. It's a constant adaptation to the shifting conditions and events. That means that as we move forward, what we're going to find is that whatever you think you're supposed to be doing, it's going to have to change. And it needs to change in a way that you can control and that you can adapt. So this process is going to use a lot of your energy and time. And that's really important because when we use energy or we threaten the use of energy, if we're talking about parenting or a military force or whatever, we are doing so in order to either enact change or to maintain a status quo. That is to say, to keep things on the even keel the way we like them. So we can almost look at it like a physics equation where you go E equals mc squared. Okay, energy in some way equals a mass, the number of resources that I can bring to bear, the number of people, the amount of money, the amount of time, the amount of energy that I can bring to bear, and the amount of effort, where effort is about the time you take and the will to act. How much time does it take you to get something done? When you hit someone with a fist, right? It doesn't take a lot of time. You're using this resource and it hurts a lot because the energy transference is quite large. If you're trying to talk somebody to death, it may take a much longer amount of time in terms of your resources. The amount of effort it will take, because you have to have the will to act over time, is much greater, and the amount of resources, your other resources you're going to have to bring to bear is much greater. So the way you will feel that energy will be different. It's like when your parents try and convince you of something versus when they give you the very strict, do it or else, right? The difference between those is very much how you experience that strategic energy. So strategy is the means to an end, and that end is either the status quo or to change things, all right? So what I want you to think about is that you're going to take different frameworks now and see how you can move through the different levels. Senate gives us a really good way to do that. When you're in the strategic stage or the operative stage or the tactical stage, you are literally going to go through each of these. You are going to say, well, why are we doing what we're doing now? Why is it that we're focusing on these things? Why are we focusing on why are we doing what we're doing? How do we want to do that in the next iteration? And what is it we're going to do next? Okay, that gives us a way to understand and better maneuver ourselves every time we go through each of the stages of the power process, the creation process. So what you want to do is understand that the strategic process itself isn't that long one that I spoke about. That's creation. That's power writ large. That's how we experience power. But the way we move from stage to stage, is very much going to be about taking this and going, okay, breaking it down into 3 little stages. What are the 3 stages? Where am I in each of those little stages within the greater process? So we have Simon Sinek as one of the ways to do that. He gives us why, how, and what. Another person who says something really, really similar is Rumelt. Rumelt says there's a kernel of strategy. And that kernel of strategy has 3 stages to it. One is the diagnosis, the next is a guiding policy, and the last one is coherent action. So what I want to do is I want to take whatever it is I need to do. Say, I've decided to work on the heritage project. Well, define the challenge strategically, not operatively yet. What does it mean? I want to create a heritage project. What are the specific obstacles that you're going to have to deal with in order to do that, theoretically? And then simplify it to those critical issues. I'm going to tell you what I think are the major things that we're going to have to do in order to get that done. Then you're going to say something like, well, in order to do those things, here's the overall approach that we're going to take. Create a website, make sure we have the following information, connect to this, connect to that. You're going to direct and constrain action. You're going to say to yourself, here's the things I'm willing to do. Here are the things we are not going to be doing. Period, end of story, no matter what. And how to manage and engage that challenge for the future. And then you're going to start moving into the operative. And in the operative, you're going to do this same thing again, where you look to take coordinated and coherent action, where you say, okay, I'm going to redefine my challenge as smaller challenges. Here are the small things or smaller things that have to get done. We need to do some research like this. We need to get some information about that. We need to create this kind of website. We need to make sure that we have this kind of access and that kind of access. Okay, in order to do that, what are the obstacles that we might have? Here are we, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you move through this again and again and again. And you're literally going to go through it 3 or 4 times. And it sounds crazy, but you actually do this all the time. Now, in order to do this, all right, we're going to skip that one. In order to do, I'm not going to skip this one. Okay. Just to make something clear. When you engage strategically with this process, one of the things that you're going to have to deal with is decision-making writ large. You're really going to have to say, okay, what is it that's important to us? And what is it that we sort of leave to the wayside? Things that we're not going to deal with. Now, there are times when you can do that because you have the time and the ability to say we're doing a long-term event. But what happens when you have to engage this process in the minutia, like in the moment? At the you're actually relating to someone, you're engaging with someone right now. So you could use any of the strategic processes that I just said, Sinek, Rumelt, the one that we just skipped, the Okumus. You can use each of them to engage in the moment. You go, well, why is this happening and what do I need to do? How am I gonna respond? What am I gonna do about this? If you're using Sinek. Rumelt, let's quickly diagnose the situation. What is it that's happening? Why is it happening? Okay, well, how am I, what am I gonna do about this? And then take coherent action. Now, there's a gentleman by the name of John Boyd, who was a fighter pilot, and he came up with a slightly different take. It's called the OODA approach. OODA approach starts with the idea of observe, then orient, then decide, and then act. So what we're talking about here is very much a sense of you're going to first observe events. You are going to see how the events are unfolding. You are going to try really hard to gauge what external information you have, the environmental responses, your opponent's responses, your parents' responses, your siblings' responses, your girlfriend's responses, your boyfriend's responses. You're going to orient around what it is that they're doing. You're going to create a mental model that says, okay, based on that, I'm going to do the following. And that's going to really be impacted by who you are as an individual. Your history with them, your history for yourself, your own cultural upbringing, how you analyze things, all kinds of stuff like that. And you're going to try and incorporate that new information that you've observed in order to move forward. And then you have to make a decision about how you're going to act. And that requires you to create a hypothesis. And there's a really good chance that that hypothesis is wrong. Let's be really clear about that. There is a really good chance that your hypothesis will be wrong. But that doesn't mean you get to say, I'm not going to act. You go, okay, I've made a decision. Here's my hypothesis. Here's what I can command and control. Now I'm going to engage opportunity. Let's test this. And then you move forward and you try and test it. And you will have to go through this again and again and again and again and again and again and again. All the time. And there are going to be times when it sucks because you will have tested a hypothesis and you go, man, you're pissed. Why are you so angry? Or, man, we tried this thing and it didn't work. Maybe we should go back to the drawing board on whether or not we should be doing the Heritage Project this way. Right? So as we move forward and as you see these different processes taking place, you can choose how you want to think about it. I don't care if you use this one. I don't care if you use this one. I don't care if you use this one. I don't care. But you should think and use one of them. Because if you try and use all of them, you're going to get lost. Now, I hope that makes sense because it's really important. What I'm saying is that once you've made a decision about which theoretic framework you're going to use, the overall strategic framework, and once you've decided which strategic process you are going to use moving forward, stick to it. Even if it doesn't always work exactly as you need it to, it will help you. Okay? What you're going to do is you're going to take these and you're going to move forward with this. You are going to simply say each stage, okay, we are now in the strategic stage. You're about to go into the strategic stage in depth right now. That's going to be the thing you're going to do in about 15 minutes. You're going to take this and you're going to go, okay, how do we move forward? Well, why are we doing what we're doing? If you're using Cynic, why are we doing what we're doing? And then you're going to break it down and you're going to use something like this in order to say, well, think about it for a minute. What's our inspiration here? Our inspiration here is we want to get a good grade and we have something which has inspired us. The Heritage Project has inspired us as a group. The idea of discovering and understanding who and why people should be in the IDF has inspired us. And your job will be to say, okay, what information do we need to gather about that? What is it that we need to know? Right? And how do we want to understand that? And you're going to move down through each of these stages and try and come to a point where you can say, good, now we know that when we move into the operative, which we're going to be doing over the next few weeks, we are going to have to set objectives. And in order to do that, we need to gather some more information about this thing. We need to maybe concentrate on which resources we have and what is important to us and what isn't important to us. Okay? Now, why is all this important? Because as we move forward, what happens is that we need to try and engage each of these different stages of the process. Well, we have to look at, well, intellectually, what is it that I have to do? What is it that I need to get done? Well, I need to think about the following core topics. How does that make me feel? Am I okay with doing all of the things that I think I am going to have to do? Can I really delineate what my objectives are going to have to be next? And then what is it that I can control in this upcoming set of events? And you can't control everything. There are certain things that are going to be out of your control. Did that make sense to everybody? You can just nod. I don't mind. Does that make sense to everybody? Good. So if that is clear and it's something that makes sense to all of you, then what that means is that when you are going through this, you will be able to see how your loop is working. You will be able to see how your feedback loop works. You will feel it in your bones, but more importantly, you will be able to tell me, oh, look, we've gone through this process once. We've recognized that in the meantime, we are our own other. We're doing this on our own. We've created inspiration for the next step. So when I break you down now into breakout rooms, which is what we're going to do in 5 minutes now, what you will do is you will start to look at this and say, okay, if we are the other, we're the next group, we are the people who are going to have to deal with this thing next. Here's what we intend to do. And you're going to come back to me and be able to tell me what that looks like. Clearly. In a very succinct manner. You're going to have like 3 minutes to talk. Whoever is your leader. By the way, Leora, where are you? I know you're here somewhere, Leora. Hi, Leora. You have been nominated to be in charge of your group because your group leader is presently not accounted for. So, congratulations.
What group am I in?
Not you, Leora. I said Leora. Shush. Wait, she's here? Where is she? What? Oh, hell yeah, Leona. Okay, great. You're here. Wonderful. Excellent. So, does everybody understand that? Does everyone get it? Look, I know I'm going through this relatively quickly, but we missed 2 weeks. And I really want you guys to understand. I want you to feel what it's like to go through strategy so that when we get into the operative, you guys will have a really clear sense over the next 2 weeks what it is you have to do so that when you do start maneuvering and you do start putting together your deck for your presentations, you can say, we know where we have to maneuver. We know what it is we have to bring together for our presentation itself. Because that's going to be really, really important. Okay? Because that's how you get your grade. Your grade, it doesn't come from whatever, I mean, it partially comes from what you do now and the reports that you give, but a lot of your grade is going to be how you present that in your presentation. So I want you to see this process. I want you to feel it, and I want you to understand it in depth. All right? So strategy as a process has different stages to it. When we're at the first, the inspiration stage, it looks like inspiration and then intelligence gathering, understanding, and creating some kind of knowledge bank. But another way to look at it, and those are the different focuses. At the strategic level, you're looking at inspiration and how it's forcing you to then gather intelligence and create a sense of understanding and then knowledge. But if you look at it a different way, you could almost look at it as if the first stage is about seeking inspiration. The second one is about creating vision, which is what you're doing now strategically. You're going to tell me what vision looks like. What does it look like for you? All right? You will then set for yourselves a purpose, and that purpose will be what you create in your objective stage. And then you can undertake certain missions. And that'll be about looking at, well, what are the means that we want to engage? What are the objectives? What are the goals? And I want you to tell me, what are your goals for the next 2 weeks? For the next 2 weeks, here's what we want to try and figure out. Here's what we want to do. Okay? Here are the things that are driving us. Here are the things that we feel are really important. Here are the things that if we don't do them, we really think it's going to be a problem. And what I want you to recognize, and this is just as much a life lesson as it is a theoretic one, is that there's a lot of stuff you can't control. But one of the things you can control is what you learn from. So you can learn from success, your success, other people's success. You can learn from your failures, yours and other people's. There's something that you cannot learn from other people, though, and that's perseverance. You are going to be faced with some problems along the way. Things are going to come up, and the only way you are going to learn how well you can deal with that is by pushing yourself and figuring out what you can do. And that's not just true in this project or in this class. That's going to be true in everything. So I want you to recognize that. It's really important. You can learn from other people's successes. You can learn from their failures. You can learn from your own successes and failures. How well you can persevere in the face of adversity and in the face of multiple things pulling on you all at once, and how well you can focus and concentrate and be disciplined about the things you need to be disciplined about, that's on you. So we are going to break down into groups. If you are part of a group, I will tell you which breakout room you're going to go to. If you have not yet been put in a group, which means that you are part of the bigger group, that is, you didn't decide to join another group, you will not be going into a group. I hope that makes sense. You will choose your groups on your own. Group 1 is going to be the heritage group. Group 2 is going to be the website group. Group 3 is going to be the family history group. Okay, I am opening those rooms now. If you know that you are part of one of those groups, join it.